Tracy Swedlow, and this is Televisionation. This is a show all about finding out what everybody is doing out there in the multi-platform TV industry, and we have somebody who is a veteran and a well-respected member of that community, and I'm excited to welcome Sean Cunningham, who's the CEO of the Video Advertising Bureau, VAB.
Hey, Tracy. Thanks for having me today.
What? I'm sorry, go ahead. I interrupted.
Thanks for having me today, Tracy. I appreciate it.
And where are you? What city are you in?
I am in my house in Cross River, New York, which is in suburban New York, where I've been for about the last 8 weeks or so. I think I've been to one ATM, and that may be the amount of travel I've been doing. I've been doing work, and more work. And but we are having a lot of meals with the family around something called the dining room table, which who knew? You sit around that and you eat and you talk, and that part's been great. But I don't think we could have foreseen anything we're doing now if you had asked me, talk to me about what early June looks like. If you'd asked me in early February, I'm not sure I painted this picture exactly. I knew we'd be this busy, but not this way.
I know, it's like the world changed on a dime, didn't it?
It truly did. It
I know you've got like 3 teenagers you mentioned, right?
Yeah. And we've been here. We had my eldest, we pulled out of her freshman dorm, surprise, midway through your first semester freshman year. You're coming home to spend the rest of it with mom and dad. Interesting. And, the other 2 have been distance learning, as well. And so, everyone's been getting used to all these platforms and real-time video exchanges and everything. And it's not as good as everyone says, all of the, eyeball to eyeball human interaction, but it's a pretty darn good substitute and it's getting us all through. So, video is sort of the way that everybody's getting through, this epidemic.
It is. It's the lifeline, it's the backbone that's kept us all connected. And that's what we hoped Televisionation would do for the community at large, to make sure people realize that people were still active and busy. Like you said, I mean, we're super busy working on all of these things. So I don't know what people are doing out there to relax, because I don't have time to relax. Anyway.
Well, it's funny. We needed to field something, because what we do is we're business primarily is we serve 1,200 or so marketers, and we answer their unanswered questions. That's what we do. And as you might imagine, they've had a slow slew of unanswered questions starting since early March. And we did a couple of different custom studies around that. One of the studies we did was called As Time Goes By. And what we're looking is, what are people doing to get through what was then the first, say, 8 weeks of COVID at home period. And what we found out was that, frankly, that multi-screen TV had become basically a food group. It was how people were getting through. I know that people are aware of, some of the Nielsen numbers and that kind of thing, but we wanted to know some of the underlying ways that people were using their multi-screen devices. What are they doing more of, less of, and we found, statistics that were pretty mind-bending. I mean, we found 83% of people saying things like, I could not imagine life without my television, and getting through the last 8 weeks. We were asking people, how are you dealing with the stress of the entire situation? And say, a third of them said, oh, I'm just spending more time hanging with the family. Some said gaming, some said social media, 40-some-odd% social media. 77% said, I'm spending my time watching TV and movies. So what we found out was that, real-time video and video entertainment is a huge part of how people were getting through all this. It's what was making it tolerable. It was giving them enough socialization and and enough escape, and what they're getting on social media about. So when the music stopped, I think that everybody was probably really grateful that they had world-class content, multi-screens, and were, had it all at their fingertips. So that was a pretty good break. And, when you're a marketer, that's a good thing to know that during this unprecedented time, you really do have, a captured consumer audience. So that was a pretty cool thing to have done.
But I know the advertising community has had a real kind of a parabola experience, right? Some are figuring it out. Some are taking a major step back. Some have been proactive. And, we've heard, some ways that they're handling this. What are your marketers saying now?
Well, It's funny, you framed it well, because the answer is all of the above. And I think there were different phases, and I think it was different by marketer, by segment, by category. But, in dealing intimately with all of our programmers and the folks who, run our networks and ad sales for our networks and for our MVPD champions as well, the first 2-3 weeks were one of the craziest times in the last few years with respect to how many urgent, problems and situations they had to take care of for long-term clients that they really care about. And folks suddenly needed to immediately be off and done for a while. Some folks needed to, move things in terms of inventory, and they needed to drop specific campaigns and pivot onto another campaign. Other people had their ability to sell temporarily disrupted, yet they had outstanding contractual obligation to large properties, and people had to find a solution there. Then we had, the pro sports and college sports and that type of thing suddenly go dark. And there were a lot of advertisers that either needed to repurpose those impressions and get, all of that done in the marketplace, or to get it moved, to put it on hold. I think now that we're in a different second phase now, and that, what you're seeing is you had a lot of advertisers that switched over and toggled over to COVID-related advertising. We watched over a 7-week period where over 500 discrete campaign launches of COVID-themed advertising came onto the national television platform. We saw a launch rate of around 80 to 90 campaigns a week were launching with new COVID-themed advertising. So that was sort of
how many normally would you see launch in a given week?
You'd see considerably fewer. You would. You just don't have that rate and pace. But and inside of the COVID-themed advertising too, even that had a couple of different life stages. From a life stage which was essentially just an empathy life stage and a stay-at-home, rallying cry. And then what we found out as well in our Time Goes By study, that what consumers wanted to see was that companies were taking an active role, that they were participating in the solution, that they were helping communities, that they were, they were lending resources and product and things like that to the effort for COVID. So that type of advertising changed. And now what we're seeing now is we have a lot of advertisers who may have taken a pause, who are now back on. They may have a different type of creative messaging. They may have something that's more brand oriented versus just more straight up sales oriented. And you're also seeing a lot of advertisers that are now making multi-quarter decisions and understanding, look, it's going to be a little different, but I still have an enormity of product to sell to a scale consumer base. And the way I'm going to activate them is the way I always have, which is, through scale, premium video, through multi-channel TV. One of the other things we did, again, marketers were asking for it. They were asking for, so where's the definitive case for marketing through an economic downturn? And so 2 weeks ago, we launched the definitive guide. We looked at over 100 years of economic downturns. We looked through in detail the last 6 recessions, and we were able to put together a combination of empirical data and some really great marketer by marketer data, a 6-page definitive guide to how to market your way through an economic downturn. It also looked at health-related, event-related, pandemic-related issues, so not just recessions and that type of thing. There was an explosion of response to that, and we serviced so many marketer needs coming off of that. So we know that there has been for 15 days and more this question that needs to be answered. When do we resume full power? When do we shift from COVID advertising back to more brand specific or more product feature benefit advertising? And how now do we take care of our advertising needs on multi-channel TV on a multi-quarter basis? We're seeing all these questions are coming back to the fore, and we're seeing a lot of activity in the national second quarter scatter market, picked up quite a bit in the last few weeks. So it is humming again in terms of the ability for marketers to need to connect with consumers and scale again.
And of course, now we've got these other things going on in the culture, right? We've got protests, police brutality, governments doing strange things, the election. I mean, there's just so many things these marketers are going to have to navigate. It's like it's going to be a dissertation on crisis management in
It truly
action.
is. It truly is. I was thinking about that earlier today, and that thinking that the size of what it took to make, a unprecedented pandemic in a news cycle suddenly be story number B, letter B versus
C or
letter
D, actually like C or D, I think, in some
C or
ways.
D.
Yeah.
And yet it's still the dominant story. It really is, the largest thing going on in the world. But the unrest that we've had, and all of the coverage, and all of the protests and everything, marketers are citizens of the world. They're sensitive to their consumers. Cause marketing is not something new. Cause marketing is something that brands realize that consumers look at them to have a conscience and to stand for things and to be consistent with what they think are the types of values that their consumers want. And so, yeah, I think that, to your point, 2020 is going to be looked at as one of the ultimate, brand case studies for how do you continue to build long-term brand equity inside of, not only one unforeseen, unprecedented worldwide health crisis, but here in the States, a second social crisis that dovetailed on top of it and actually, stole the news cycle, something of that size. And so I think that, brands have always had to play a role in people's lives, and long-term brand building, the art of that, has to do so much with the understanding of human values and human empathies. And yeah, I think the case studies that are going to come back from 2020 from leading brands are going to be, what a story to tell, how to successfully navigate through that and, come out, in a strong position through, these twin happenings that to this time just hadn't happened like this in combination.
So now that we're moving into, let's call it, the phase 2 in California, although that's not where you are, but just sort of this phase 2 moment for everybody, or for the industry, while this industry is sort of witnessing the successful growth of their offering, perhaps, we should be, by the way, I think, designated essential workers. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But what, and you've done these 2 studies. So what are your plans, or what are your activities right now in terms of how you're counseling your membership, and your champions, and what are the sort of steps that you're taking to help them understand how to navigate all this?
And I think that marketers want to understand, what the change in multi-screen TV habits happened during this 9 or 10 week period of at-home COVID time. What does that mean going forward? What does that mean in terms of, getting again to audiences in scale, getting to very discrete audiences? What does it mean for? Did we have a moment where a lot of the trends that were happening in February, did they speed up through all of the consumption that we had? People that were considering things like audience-based targeting and really testing and learning on on streaming, on OTT, and taking a look and sitting there and saying, with everything that happened with COVID, where devices were so primary and everyone's device in use seemingly all the time, do we have accelerated learning about how we can motivate consumers on an all-screen basis with multiple conduits, with OTT, with streaming? How does linear work into that? A lot of the questions we're getting are having to do with there's been such a strong surge in live viewing. Is that going to continue? A lot of that has to do with what will happen with the possible return of major sports and fanless events, that type of thing. People are also asking about if there is a production cycle that starts in July, if crews and production can begin that type of activity. And to your point, some of that in California, some of that in other places. What does that mean in terms of a schedule for 2020 fourth quarter and for further on? And if it doesn't happen, what does that mean? So there are a lot of moving parts. I think it's a great time to experiment. I think it's a great time to everything that mattered in terms of innovation in February. I think that we folded the map and had a lot of learning inside of this COVID period. And I think that, you know, the role of data, the role of data-driven, you know, smart television, all of that, I think becomes, you know, just a bit more important as we go forward. And I think that the test activity and the hotbed for testing is there for the next few quarters to really accelerate the learning.
I am curious, and maybe you know, because of the interest in live television, in live streaming like we're doing, and people's sort of use of all of these new platforms out there, I'm kind of curious, do you know of any advertisers who are taking advantage of live streaming to connect with their consumers? You'd think that would be kind of an exciting way to bypass a lot of other barriers, you know, or to create their own audiences. I mean, they've produced videos and websites in the past and things like that, but maybe some brands with TV partners could create better live streamed experiences. Are you aware of anything like that?
You know, I think the key is scale. I
mean, if I were me in charge, I would do that. I would absolutely create those experiences. But
my psychology with respect to video and video innovation, and the, you know, art and science of marketing products and, you know, using media as a marketing instrument has always been, you know, why not test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. I think that, you know, you don't want to read anywhere that someone else in your category is doing something innovative and you say to yourself, well, we had that idea, we just didn't activate it. I don't think there's anything worse than that. I think that smart marketers are the ones who are, if you will, consistently laying down small bets, if you will, in a lot of different formats because they want to learn. They want to be there when it breaks to scale. They want to have learned. They want to forge partnerships. They want to have some legitimate citizenry inside of there. They want to be one of the first movers. So to me, if I'm a marketer, what I'm looking at is, you know, my divining rod for where to lay my bets down has to do with my predictability around scale. One of the things from having a, you know, almost 20-year background in the agency business, and part of that being media planning, is you get to see 1,000 different great ideas are put in front of you. But the ones that really need to get your attention is the combination of the great innovation that's scalable. And because, you know, for the most part, you know, clients have got fantastic data with respect to all the motivating factors and all of the affinity factors, and they have the ability to really hone and use data, but they need to be able to take insights and have them be something that can be activated by a custom platform with a custom message that's still got to work in scale. So for me, as I look at all of the different video options that are out there, what I'm looking for is, of course, the best-in-class content. That's a given. It's got to be world-class content. The second is I'm looking for a captured consumer in scale. And, you know, the third is the ability to read what are they going to do. The attribution piece of that is also so big as well. It's not just the innovation from the platform. It's not just the right message to the right person. It's then being able to say, and they did X. And we, you know, we're seeing the rise of that science so well and so strongly in the last few quarters as well. And I think that, again, that's something that's going to take off in the next few quarters. So my thing is absolutely test. Absolutely.
It's interesting that you say, it's interesting that you say test and give them data and look at how they performed. All these live streamed experiences are rich with what did people do? How did they watch? What did they click on? How did they communicate? I feel like there's an opportunity there for brands that they're not taking up, perhaps. I mean, we're doing it. We're launching our own virtual event, and it's going to be captured audience and high quality content. We're doing all of those kinds of things. So I would be kind of curious to see when they are coming in to ask you questions. I guess that was self-promotion, but when
it was good though.
It's my show. It's my show. You know.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, but anyway, when they are coming in to talk to you, are you advising them in particular? Like you mentioned face tracking before. We did an interview with a face tracking technology company earlier in the series, but are you advising them to pursue attribution projects in particular, or get involved in the addressable advertising business, or like, are you giving them any kind of strategy?
Those are two great those are two great runs right there. And the answer is yes on both. In terms of, in terms of attribution, we have been watching the rise, for example, of on multi-screen TV. We've been watching the rise of DTCs over the last 3-4 years, and we find them fascinating because these are the people who've got the best data with respect to their primary purpose, and the reason for being was data driven and data attribution driven data first, some of them before they even picked a product category. And so we've watched, and as of 2019, we had 193 different DTCs on the national television platform that were spending $4 billion. And if you look back, say to 2015, 2014, there was a much less amount, and they were spending about $500 million. So we've become intimate with a lot of those brands. We've done campaigns with those brands. We've met with their founders, and we became fascinated by attribution. We became fascinated by the science of, the combination of the short-term activation and the ability to get people to drive to websites and to make purchase decisions, but also the ability to start building brand preference and the ability to start building a world-class brand inside of, 1 30-second advertisement, and how good these companies are at both. We're fascinated by attribution, but we're also fascinated by the people who are not only getting results today, but are building for results tomorrow and using these channels in the most efficient ways. And one of the things you realize when you get very close to these DTCs is that they will try almost any and all different forms of video advertising, and they go in there completely agnostic, and they let their performance speak for itself. The other one you mentioned was advanced advertising. We're just seeing so many more people that are able to make those great marriages between, a first-party client-driven data file and a viewership data file, and just be able to make that efficient magic happen with product predisposition, purchase predisposition, and to have tangible, measurable results. So those two sciences, the combination of attribution and addressability, those are things that we're forever answering marketer questions on. And those are, two pieces of the, 2020, 2021 marketer toolkit that I hope just keep getting more and more robust.
What are your marketers saying about placing ads in streaming environments versus reaching out to, online to, UGC networks like YouTube and things like that, where they might hit content that's more evergreen, perhaps that's not the right word, but more fresh, something that's new, because I know, associating yourself with new content is so important. And, or do you find that they are sort of hovering around the old series or the
I don't know that it's new or old. I mean, I think what your current consumer is, and it doesn't matter if I'm talking about somebody who's 7, 17, 27, 57, or 67. What you are is you're a relentless video media editor. There isn't anyone who isn't spending an awful lot of their time sort of triaging through, what seem like endless media options and figuring out what I call their favorite food groups are. And some of those are delivery mechanisms and conduits, but a lot of those are the types of content affinity that they like. And I don't know that that's new or old. It's just people arrange the hours that they have when they're not even either school or work around the ability to most efficiently consume their best content with the least amount of friction.
If they're like me, I've got, one device going on while I'm working and another thing playing maybe on the big screen while I'm working, and maybe checking this. I mean, I have to watch it all at the same time sometimes.
I think one of the vanishing breeds in this country is a single screen, video consumer. I just don't know that they're there anymore. And as I said, what you have is device athletes who are terrific editors of media content. And to me, the invisible contract is the ability to, whatever they consider world-class content, that you deliver it at arm's length, moment's notice. And very often, I mean, the telling thing is scale. It comes back to scale again. That's how some of that really longer tail and UGC stuff kind of works its way out of the system for a marketer, because they sit there and they're like, look, what's important to me is that I've got a connected, committed consumer who is leaning in towards whatever their affinity content is. So long as that dynamic is happening, that can then activate. What I want, though, is the ability to activate and scale. And so that's what we're seeing, in that they don't have to make those choices. What they're able to find is there are terrific turnkey conduits towards getting that kind of affinity, that kind of connection in scale to world-class content. That's and the marketer is adjusting their marketing mix like that. One of the things too that was interesting through the whole COVID environment that I think is never go back, and we'll always have been able to put this learning in our pocket, is marketers had to come out with completely new creative in a completely compressed time frame, and they didn't have the ability to go take 200 people and fly them to New Zealand for a shoot, right? They had to use what would be at the disposal of your average consumer in terms of their techniques and how they could, scout things, shoot things, edit things. And they had to use, sort of the everyman tools. And did you see how brilliant some of that work was? And it was brutally simple, and it was terrifically convincing. And I think that's something, a move forward too, in terms of the nimbleness and the agility. And, if there's been a mismatch between all of these terrific premium video conduits that are being consumed with such scale and passion, but maybe we didn't have the ability as marketers before, they didn't have the ability to, imagine their way through a scenario under which they could rattle off 6 different creative pool outs inside of an efficient time frame, relatively inexpensively, for 6 different affinity groups. Now I think they have proof positive they can do it, and they don't need that much more than a set of video tools that are available to your common teenager. It's a great thing about.
Or you can hire video teams around the world through an agency like Stringer. We just uploaded that interview today, right? Where you can, other countries have different lockdown rules. So you need to learn how to be adaptable, nimble,
Yes.
and build a hybrid experience. And I think you're right. Those observations are correct. How to advise companies and to motivate them to pursue that kind of strategy is probably complicated. Would you say 50%, more than 50? I mean, would you say people are interested and willing to do those kinds of to make those hard decisions and to adapt? Or do you think they're reticent and what's the mood?
I think that so much has changed in terms of what's now within the realm of the possible and what now is worthy of experimentation. If we take a look and, the difference between early June versus early February, and by the way, we were headed in a good direction anyway. We had a heck of a lot of innovation going on anyway. But I now think, that it's hard to take, either Jane marketer or Joe marketer and have them gone through, everything since early March. And I've yet to meet the person who isn't, rethinking and questioning things that they thought were barriers before. I think that people see a lot of friction that's disappeared. And I think that a lot of people have, if it wasn't for the forced conditions, may have never tried so many of the things in either their personal or their family life.
Yes.
And I'm just seeing this attitude that sits there. And I think, what's possible now in terms of what's on the menu for your average marketer in, early June is so much more expansive, and they're so much more open to it. And I think they foresee what were previously things that were perceived as barriers as less, much more than they did in early March, that's for sure. And I think that that's one of the legacies of this time period, is that, it will fold the map to innovation.
Fold the map to innovation. Sounds like folding space-time so we can have time travel through okay, let's not go there. Okay.
That one I can't help you with.
It's the old thing when you fold space and then you can go through space more quickly
It sounds like something that Michael Jordan can do.
It's an Einstein. Right. Okay. So what's next for the VAB? Are you producing any events? You doing any Webinars? You're doing another
we're
report? What's your roadmap in the next few months?
well, our roadmap and our platform is the laptop that we're both staring into, and the medium is the message. And the fact is that we were on February 13th in a beautiful setting in a Hearst Tower in New York City. We had a terrific event. And right now, we couldn't have that event if we wanted to hold that event in a couple of weeks. But what we're finding, again, through the video innovation and tools and captured audiences and scale, and the fact that, here's where the marketers are. They're on these kind of forums. So you're going to see, we're going to see, more events that we're going to pull together that are going to be pulled together. And, they will be available to everyone through, through Zoom and through Microsoft. And that's where our community is now meeting. And, that's what we're going to do more of. And I think as well, we're going to continue to understand the consumer behavior in this unprecedented time and interpret that and help marketers for, what is the path to that long-term, brand building? And was this an interruption? Will it be seen over a continuum as an inflection point? There's an acceleration. That's the kind of things we're working on.
It's almost like this moment really is sort of like all these flammable ingredients have been put into a crucible and everything's being mixed up and changed, and something is going to come out of this. And hopefully good or good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate your sharing your insights and your intelligence and all the sort of details of what's going on at the VAB. We really appreciate the work that you guys do for this industry. And I'm sure they can reach out to you or join
of course
if they want to over at the VAB. And I hope we will be including you in our show, the TVOT Leadership Congress. We have our own show. We'd love to have you involved in that.
Well, I'd love to be part of it. I mean, you're such a member of this community, and yours that I look forward to. And now, our platform's a little different, but the leaders are the same. The issues are more accelerated. I'd love to be part of it. And to your point, with respect to anything having to do with, video, advertising, insights, innovation, thevab.com, come see us. Where you're going to find, as time goes by, our COVID study. That's where you're going to find, keep calm and advertise on, how to, build through economic downturn. So
is it a t-shirt?
Welcome.
Is it a VAB t-shirt?
We should, that's something I need to do, I have to do probably 3 bits through video now. It's fine by me.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean.
It was great seeing you.
You too. Don't get off.
Take care.
Don't get off
Yep.
yet. Thank you so much, everybody. Sean Cunningham, CEO of the VAB.com. Tracy Swedlow from Televisionation. Please reach out to me if you'd like to tell us what you're up to and how you're doing in the multi-platform interactive TV industry all over the world. Take care. Bye.